let me go ahead and apologize to you straight away, because we're going to start moving towards the Christmas story early. How early, you ask? Not quite as early as the Christmas commercials you see on television. However, we are going to start moving towards that today. Over the next about 5 weeks, I want us to look at the wonder of the Christmas story. It is an amazing story that tells us a bunch of who God is and exactly how far He would go, the lengths to which He would reach for you and me. So that's what we're going to be about today. Now, this is a pretty big job we're going to have across the next 5 weeks, because in order to really get the wonder of the Christmas story, we need to look at the whole overarching story of the Bible. How's that for aspiring high? In 5 Sundays, the whole story of the Bible in miniature. I'm sure by now you're wondering, oh my goodness, how long are these sermons going to be? Well, hopefully it won't be that bad, but that's what we're going to be about. To get at the true wonder of Christmas, we need to look at the beginning. The beginning starts from the ageless past, before the world as we know it began. And even as some scientists postulate, before, if you can imagine this, there was even space as we understand it now. And the world was without form and void, but something was there. God moved over the face of this formless chaos, as the scriptures term it. And God had an idea. Let's make stuff. So God started doing exactly that. He started making things. He started creating. Hence we have the stories in chapters 1 and 2 of Genesis. We have the creation stories that we find there. Now let me pause for just a moment and add in this. No extra charge for what I'm about to share with you. I know that there is this conflict that's been raging for years between faith and science and how everything got done. For my money, it matters not to me how God did it. The point of it all, the point of Genesis chapters 1 and 2 to me is that God did it. I know science says that it all began about 13.8 billion years ago, when all the matter in the universe, this is one of the theories anyway, existed in one stunningly small space, incredibly dense and incredibly hot. It heated to what was estimated to be like 10 billion, yes, billion with a B, degrees Fahrenheit. And then began to expand. And then space, as we understand it now, came into being. However God did it, God did it. Amen? He was behind all of it, whatever processes He used to get us here. Now, to understand the overarching story of the Bible, is no secret, folks, that the creation stories in Genesis chapters 1 and 2 come first. That is fundamental to everything else that we might believe. That all that is here got here because God did it. Because there was a point in time where God said, now, let's let things come into being starting now. However God did it, God did it. And made everything that is. Here's why that belief matters. If we are just an happy accident of things coming together just against all odds, and life got formed, and then wouldn't you know it, here we are. If that's how it worked, then what is my purpose? My purpose is whatever I might decide that it would be. I mean, if I just happen to show up on the scene and you lucky people get to sit out there and look at me Sunday after Sunday, if that is indeed the case, then I just as well live my life to avoid pleasure, I got that backwards, to avoid pain and move towards all the pleasure that I can get hold of. Just as well. I might as well make that to be my purpose. What would be my purpose if I just, by an accident of history and things coming together just so against all odds, what would my purpose be? However, if I was created, if I was designed by a creator, then it stands to reason that my Creator would have had a purpose and a meaning in mind for me. Consider this. There is a wall in our apartment that needs painting. Now, I'm going to get Julie to do this for us, to paint the wall for us, but don't tell her I've already gone Christmas shopping and purchased the equipment that she needs to paint the wall. Don't tell her, because this will be a surprise. All you got to do is dip this into paint and rub it on the wall. Ought to work fine, right? Not going to work at all. Why? Because this was not designed. This was not created to put paint on the wall. This is a striking instrument. You hit things with it. You don't paint walls with it. It's not designed for that. So it would be out of step to try to use it to apply paint on the wall with this. It would be out of step with that which it was designed and created to do and be. Such are our lives when we don't follow the design that our Creator had for us. We become very much, our lives begin to feel like a hammer trying to put paint on a wall. That begs the question then, what are we designed for? What are we created to be and do and to be about? I think we find the answer reflected in one of the verses that Russell read for us out of Genesis 1. And it reads this way. God said, let us make humankind in our image. That's it. We are designed to live in the very image of our Creator. Now, I don't think that means at all that He looks like us. I seriously doubt that God is 59 and 5'3" and balding. Don't know where I'd have gotten that example from. But I seriously doubt that God physically looks like that. Rather, I think what that means is we are to reflect to the rest of creation. God designed us apart from the rest of creation to live in connection with Him, to show who He is, to show His nature, not His physical likeness, but His nature. His character to all of the rest that is what we are designed for. One of the ancient lessons called catechisms that the church years ago would teach, and still does in many denominations, teach to those who were candidates for baptism, would be a question and answer kind of lesson. And one of the questions that would be put to those who were candidates for baptism was, what is the chief end of all humans? The answer was to know God and to enjoy Him forever. I think that kind of gets it. We are designed to live in connection with the one who created us. When we fail to do that, when we fail to live in the image of God, in connection with Him, our lives become like trying to put paint on a wall with a hammer. We're out of step with what we were created to do and be, and we don't have our purpose down pat for which we were designed. We're living outside of our created, designed purpose. So then we try to find purpose in things that we were never purposed for. We try to find purpose perhaps in things like riches or esteem or possessions, but they never fully satisfy. We are created to belong to God and to live in connection with Him. That's what we were designed for. And that's why this belief that God made everything, including us, matters tremendously. That's why we're here. We're here to live in the image of God, in connection with God. The story in Genesis continues. Early on in the creation stories, this force shows up that tries to pull Adam and Eve away from God, away from their purpose. They were living connected with God, face to face. Can you imagine? Face to face, connected with the one who made them. They were living out their purpose to live in Him. But then this force shows up to try to pull them away from that purpose. God had set a rule that if you will try to find life anyplace else other than in me, you will not find life. Instead, apart from me, you will find death. Remember the story of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil there in the garden? Don't try to find life there, God said. Find it instead in me. Well, this other force, the devil, shows up and deceives Adam and Eve. And he says to them, no, your life will really be better. You will have more life. I know what God said, but you'll have better life if you eat from that tree. If you eat of it, ignore what God said. You won't really die. You'll have better life. Hear the temptation. Let's find life apart from that which we were designed to be and do. Apart from being connected with God. It'll be better over there. They listened, they ate, and they died. They didn't die a physical death, but their spirit died. That part of them that connected with God, that part of us that's designed to get God, died. In general speak, we are comprised of three basic parts: our body, our mind, and our spirit. Our spirit is the part of us that gets God. Now, some of you, like me, remember the days when we had rabbit ears on our television? And if you wanted to watch this certain program on any of the one or two, or if you really were lucky, 3 channels that you would get on your rabbit ears, in order to get it to come in right, one family member had to stand there throughout the show and keep a hand in a certain place on it, and maybe stand on one foot, got a rest during commercials, then back to it again. Or else you didn't get the connection. But you take the rabbit ears away, and what have you got? You got no television back in the day. You got a snow documentary from some great frozen place in the world, and that's all you get. The antennas help get the message that gets transferred to the television set. So is the functioning of the Spirit within us. It's like the rabbit ears that get God, that perceive God, that connect with God. When the Spirit died, Adam and Eve no longer naturally sought God. They no longer naturally connected with Him. That became unnatural for them because the Spirit, the part that gets God, is now dead. So is the state that we know left to our own. Psalm 14 says this: God looks to see if any seek for God, but they have all gone astray. Seeking God is no longer natural for us. The times that we feel drawn towards God no longer, as it first did, as it was first intended to happen in us, no longer emanates from a place inside us. Instead, it's a gift out of God's mercy that He gives us. It feels like it's coming from us, but it's actually God drawing us towards Him out of His mercy and grace. We don't naturally seek God, but yet God draws us none the same. We're going to talk more about this story because, as you could imagine, there's more. That is the problem that Christmas reverses. We'll hear more about that in weeks to come, but let me leave you with this thought. Even though it is natural for us to live apart from God, to try to find life in things besides God, even though it makes us much like trying to put paint on the wall with a hammer. Even though we wander that direction, as the song says that we love to sing in church, prone to wander, Lord, I feel it, prone to leave the God I love. Even though that is us, that we don't naturally seek God, be assured of this: in not one single moment, and we're going to see how true this is as we go forward, has God ever stopped seeking you. And all God's people together said, Amen. Amen.